We are discussing the body cavities here, looking at number, was it number 10 in the coloring book, answering some questions in the coloring book. So we're referring and discussing and reviewing the dorsal body cavities, which are the superior ones, the cranial cavity, and the spinal cavities inferior. And then looking at the ventral ones, the ones that are in front or anterior, is a diaphragm that divides the two. The superior is called thoracic cavity, and it houses the heart and lungs. And every other organ other than brain, spinal cord, heart and lungs, every other organ is going to be located in the abdominopelvic cavity. We're going to call it both abdominal pelvic because you guys don't really know enough to know the separation. There really isn't a true delineation between these two cavities. So we're going to call it collectively abdominal pelvic. So if I say stomach, intestine, ovary, kidney, urinary bladder, all those, they're not up here. They're not in my spine. And up here is heart and lungs. I think you all know that. So any other organ I say, you're going to say abdominal pelvic cavity or inferior ventral body cavity. You see how I can ask you a bunch of different ways that question? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so it would be the inferior ventral cavity is called the abdominal pelvic cavity. So this is the specific, but if I'm using directional terms, it's the inferior ventral body cavity. Okay, cool beans. Good question, good question. All righty. We're going to continue to move on, and I'm going to review the regional terms. What number is that one there? 13, you had to do 13. So that was just answering a few questions, but I'm going to do that with Ms. Peck says or looking at Naked Man in a few minutes. So we're going to blow that off. But if you look at the two diagrams, that you had to label, and you might even want to color that sometime to help yourself out, you can see that letter A is cutting down the middle, creating a left and right side. Whenever you cut, make a section of the body and you get a left and right side, that's called a sagittal, okay? Specifically, this one's mid-sagittal because it's right in the middle, but sagittal would be correct as well. Okay, so that's a sagittal section. If you're cutting across, anywhere across, and looking from that point, is looking at the superior, inferior, that's called a transverse, like a T, cutting across. That's a transverse cut or a cross section. And what is not shown here is if you would do a section like this that would yield an anterior posterior, that would be called a frontal or coronal section. All right, moving on. What's the one where it's more select the body cavities? What number is that one? 15? Okay, so we're going to look at number 15 for all of you guys. Now, I also looked at some of your homework that you've been adding. I do not want you writing down letters anymore. Do not write down letters. It's not helping yourself at all. I want you to write out the corresponding word. When you go to review these, your brain doesn't know what letter C is, and then you have to physically move your eyes up and look at it. By now, you've kind of forgotten what the statement was, but if you see the word right next to the statement, it helps you learn it much better. And then you make your flashcards or you write that out 5 times or 6 times or review orally with someone, however you do, whatever you do to learn it. Just looking at notes, just looking at that stuff is short-term memory. It fools your brain and you feel like, oh, I know this. Have you ever studied for like a couple hours and the next day you draw a blank and you get like a C for the test or D? It's because your brain fooled you. You felt great. I've studied for 2 hours. I've looked at this. I've reread my chapter. I know everything. All it was familiarizing yourself in short-term memory. You didn't work with it some way to get it into long-term memory, and you weren't able to recall everything. You're all really bright to recall some stuff, but you can't recall everything. You have to work with it. You have to fill in diagrams. You have to quiz each other. You have to write it down over and over and over again. I get long tablets and I just dump everything down over and over and over again. That's the way I learn. Or I get a really good study buddy, someone who I trust who's learned this stuff, and we quiz each other. Yes, Devin. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's cool. You could just add pictures to the document, or what we've done now. Sorry, we changed that. Remember, did you guys make folders and share them with me? You're going to create a new document each time, and it's going to be named whatever. So it would have been CB, whatever numbers we had to do, 10, 12, I don't know. 15 through 16. It's okay, I'll find it. It's okay, I'll find it. But in the future, I want you to create a separate, because then I'm going to go in your folder. I'm going to search by last added, and then I can find each kid's homework easier that way. Okay. And so if you look at these, uterus, you don't even know where the darn uterus is. It's like, okay, but it's an organ that it's not a heart or lung. It's not a brain or spinal cord. So you're going to say it's in the abdominal pelvic cavity or the inferior ventral body cavity. Okay. Here they're being more specific than what I'm asking you to do. So here I would say abdominal pelvic. Remember, you put the O in it. Everything has to be phonetically spelled correct. You can make a correction there and write abdominal pelvic for number 1 on number 15. And then I would even further write down on the right side, I would say that is the inferior ventral body cavity. Okay, so you know the heart is going to be in the thoracic cavity. The brain's going to be in the cranial. An appendix, I'm not really sure what an appendix is, but it's not a brain. It's not a spinal cord. It's not my heart or lungs. So it can only be in the abdominal pelvic cavity. And the stomach also are the same thing. Looking at question number, so this is 15. I have an old version. This is 16. With 16, you guys should be able to answer any of these statements and be able to get the directional terms in the correct way. Anatomical position. The face and the palms are on what side of the body? How are they facing, everyone? Anteriorly. Very good, very good. And the buttocks and shoulder blades are on what side? Posterior. The top of the head is the most what part of the body? Very good. What's the most inferior? What's this one on the bottom of my foot? Plantar. Very good, plantar. Okay. The ears are what to the shoulders? They're above it. Very good. The ears are superior, and the ears are what to my nose? Lateral. They're away. Very good. And the heart is what to the spine? It's in front of the spine. So what do you call it? It's anterior. Excellent. And the heart is what to the lungs? Medial. Very good. It's in the middle. The elbow is what to the fingers? Proximal. What is anterior elbow called? Antecubital. What is posterior elbow called? Olecranon. Remember, ole, 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 olecranon. And I'm videotaping that. That's lovely. Let's see here. But the fingers are what to the shoulder? They're further away, so they're more they're distal, right? They're distal. Good. And in humans, the dorsal surface can also be called the what? Posterior. However, in four-legged animals, the dorsal surface is the, it's the superior, it's above. I'm not going to ask that question. You can cross that one off. Don't worry about 11. I will only ask that once we actually start to dissect the cats. Number 12, but if the incision in the heart cuts in the right and left parts, it's sagittal. You don't have to say mid-sagittal. It's sagittal. 13, but if the heart is cut so it has anterior and posterior, that's frontal. We'll cut some frontally, and then we're going to cut some transverse starting at the bottom so we can compare the density and the thickness of the right and left side. 14, you're told to cut an animal along two planes so that paired kidneys are observable in both sections. All right, so think about your lungs or your paired kidneys. You're not really sure where they are. What section could I cut it so you would see both? And look at Mrs. Peck now. Look at me. If I cut my body sagittally and looked at one side, the right side, do you see how you would only see one lung or one kidney? So it can't be sagittal, so it has to be the other two. If I cut myself like this, what's this section which gives me anterior, posterior? Frontal, very good, frontal or coronal. And I peel that off. You see how if I peel this off, you could still see both lungs or both kidneys, whatever's bilaterally symmetrical. Good, good, good. And if I cut right here through the kidneys and turned it towards you, or right here through the lungs and turn it towards you, you would still see both transversely. If I cut it, however, sagittally in the middle, you can only see one. Do you understand the question now? So now without, maybe you didn't get it, you had to go and look at the answers, but now you could see that it's the frontal and transverse yields both organs. And then here you're looking at a bunch of organs and you're trying to figure out where they would be. Number 10, is 10 pituitary gland for you guys? Yes. You don't know what the pituitary gland is or where it's located. I'm not asking you that. I'll say brain. I'll say heart and lungs for thoracic. I'll say spinal cord for the spinal. And then every other organ will be abdominal pelvic. Okay? Good. All righty. Lastly, I want to share what my other class, the Intro to Medical Science, has done. And the way this works is if you slide the bar over to the right, start sliding it, it will reveal the answers on the right side. And they've put them in boldface here. So the way I'll assess you with these is I will have questions like this, and it will say, it will look just like this, because this is how you've practiced. So my assessment should reveal like how you practice. So it'll say like the front knee is blank to the shin region, and you are going to type out in the answer the patellar. You're going to write patellar, comma, is what to the crural. Patellar is what to crural. Everyone? Proximal. Very good. And this is crural. Very good. So you guys will write out your answers in response. It will be whatever this word is, this word, and this word. And for those here, it'll be what word is replacing this, what word is replacing the directional term, and what word is replacing the regional term. Does everyone understand? Yes, ma'am. You're on Power School, so I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Pardon me? Oh, it's a link somewhere, the kid said. I didn't realize I had already linked it. Is it on chapter 1?
It's on this week.
Oh, it's on this week of. Go to this week of. And it says what we're going to, is it on there? I thought it didn't update.
Yeah, it says regional directional term statement doc.
Excellent.
Try to answer all questions.
Okay, good. So you'll be using those to review and realize that I could create my own as well, using any regional terms and any directional terms. Okay, so here it's linked here, regional directional term statement doc. Excellent. Holland, do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, she's on it too?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Cool beans, excellent. Get this out of the way. Get this out of the way. So why don't you guys look at a few of these right now? Let's do a couple together. Let's look at number 7. Let's look at number 7. The point of the shoulder is blank to the wrist area. Okay, the point of the shoulder is blank to the wrist area. Okay, so everyone, what is this region here called? Acromial region. What is the wrist region called? Carpal. The acromial region is what to the carpal region? Proximal. It's closer to the point of attachment of this arm. Okay, this is where the arm is going to attach to the torso. You have to talk really loud. Because I could go like this. Yeah, that's good. See, now you'll remember. You'll remember because you asked that question. That's excellent. Because now it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh my gosh, yeah. So if you're not quite sure, kids, please ask questions. It's okay to be wrong. This is when your brain has some skin in the game. It's going to remember. Like you're going to get that right every time now, Devin, because you asked that question. And you were asking what else? So you have to hear the what's asked first. The acromial region is what in respect to this? It's closer to the point of attachment, so it's proximal. If I said the carpal region is what to the brachial, antecubital, axillary, this would be distal, it's further away. So it's called operationally defining. You have to listen to the wording. What the first one is in what direction compared to the other one. Excellent question. Any questions so far? We're doing well. So I would like you guys to go through these as you're studying and preparing. They will help you. Oh, here's one on the cuts. That's awesome. My students did a great job. The heart is what to the diaphragm? What's the direction? The heart is what to the diaphragm? It's superior, because you guys need to know the diaphragm bisects or creates or delineates the two ventral body cavities. The superior one here is the thoracic, and the inferior one is abdominal pelvic. Great. So, and the answers are on the right side. The kneecap is blunt to the ankle, and you would say the patellar is proximal to the tarsal region. So why don't we right now get up and play Miss Peck Says. Stand up, please. I'm going to stop the recording. Figure out how to stop the recording in my meeting.